Hey everyone, welcome to the Self-Awareness Journey podcast. I'm Melissa Albers.
And I'm JJ Parker. This podcast is for seekers, seekers of happiness and joy, seekers of a centered approach to success in life, seekers of their true, authentic selves.
Get ready for some real talk on everything from anxiety, emotions, and habits to love, compassion, and forgiveness. We know you'll be challenged and enlightened by this conversation. We're so glad you're here. Let's dive in.
Well, it's late August,
Yes.
and I've got a 12-year-old, a 15-year-old, and a 16-year-old. And with school-age kids, the end of August
Stinks.
means, painful torture. It's like everyone is super excited about the beginning of summer and all the activities. We're going to do this, we're going to do that. And,
Yep.
by the end, no one wants to do anything.
Yep.
And everyone's a little grumpy at each other.
Yep. Welcome to
And here we
what I
are.
call August summer. Not to be
And all we're waiting
confused.
for
Yeah.
is the first day of school.
Yeah. Not to be confused with June summer. And it's a thing.
It's totally a thing. All the other parents feel it.
Yeah. And even if you don't have kids, you know what you're still dealing with? You're still dealing with your own back to school feelings as a grown up.
Oh, you know what? I had never considered that.
Oh.
That's funny.
Uh-huh. It's so hugely
All this time,
apparent.
like you and I've been talking about that, I never considered that
Serious?
part of. Yeah. Huh.
Hello.
Yeah,
Woo.
duh. That's like completely obvious.
Oh my gosh. It's bad though. Like it's really, really bad. And you know what I'm going to tell you? I also think that this year in particular is even worse. I can't tell you how many coaching conversations I've had where this is the running theme.
Mm.
And a grown-up that has the back to school scaries, it manifests as, I don't want to go back to work. I just took these vacations. Summer's ending. The weather's going to get terrible. I don't want to do anything. I can't get motivated.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah. Well, since you just blew my mind like 30 seconds ago, I want I felt that with work,
Mhm.
but I always, well, I guess for the past 17 years, more associated it with my kids going back to school
Mhm.
more than a reflection of my own childhood feelings.
Oh,
But you're absolutely right. Why wouldn't that be a huge driver in our kind of like yearly cycle? Of course it would be.
yeah. Yeah. And it's real. And people, it's funny because people like to put all of their anxiety, well-meaning, on their children's experiences.
Mm.
You know, in the age of overparenting,
Mhm.
over caring for our children, in the age of all these scary things happening in schools, by the way, the
Yeah.
anxiety is through the roof for people with their kids in school. And who can blame anyone for any of that? But it's easy then for any anxiety that the parent has to simply put it there because no one's going to question that. No one's going to look into that. No one's going to think you're out of whack for that.
Right. Yeah.
But you've got all your own stuff too, and it really, really hits at the end of summer. I am seeing it so strongly with my clients right now.
Okay. We gotta dive in
Okay.
one by one to these topics. Okay.
Well, you know
So
how
we're
I
gonna
like to just stuff all of the things in one really long, stringy sentence.
I need to bust this down into a bullet list. So let's first talk about this carryover from childhood that whether we have kids or not, that we feel towards the end of summer, towards like the turning into fall, because the turning of the seasons, especially for us in Minnesota, like the season change is
Mhm.
like a big environmental external change.
Mhm.
And a lot comes with that, and going back to school is part of that change. So that obviously, as the weather gets cooler here,
Yeah.
as we get into this
Yeah.
late summer, early fall,
Yeah.
all that probably triggers in us and we don't really realize it.
Mhm. Yeah, I think, I definitely can feel it, like, like, we always talk about anxiety when we're talking about in our pod, well, not always, but often we do. We talk about the physical manifestation of those feelings in your body, where you feel it in your body, and I think when we get to be adults, we get really good at managing the anxiety without
Mm,
really, labeling what it is or where it's coming from. No
mhm.
matter how often I talk about that, I feel like I could talk about it every single day and it would still just scratch the surface.
Yeah. Yeah, if you think about, like, you know, sometimes people will, like, describe just even growing up, even in the healthiest environment, as traumatic,
Mhm,
right?
mhm.
Because the amount of change you go through as a child is a lot,
Yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah,
So even the school cycle
yeah. New friends.
for a lot of people
Yep.
was a really anxious event,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Even if it went really well, it still creates a lot of emotion
yeah,
and anxiety, and I mean, and frankly, sometimes a lot of excitement and anticipation,
yeah. But
right? So,
yeah,
but there's a big event
mhm.
every back to school for you.
Yeah,
So if you think about your childhood and events that would affect it, obviously this yearly cycle would be a big one.
yeah. I mean, and it isn't just the, pressure of starting school, right? It's the physical change. Um, I remember, and this is so funny because I've always been a morning person. Like I'm just up and ready to go
Hmm.
all the time. And even as a kid I was, but somehow when school started to edge closer and closer, I started feeling like, oh, I'm not gonna be able to sleep in anymore. Well, I didn't never sleep in,
Oh yeah,
right? But
that's
do you
yeah,
know what I mean? These are like
yeah.
the things we tell ourselves, like, oh, I'm not gonna be able to sleep in anymore. It's like, oh yeah, I'm not gonna be able to sleep in until 6 o'clock anymore. Right? But then also there is the, stress and anxiety of even eating food, because
Hmm.
when you have all of a sudden you're back in an all-day schedule, you can't eat when you want anymore,
Yep.
So if your body has gotten used to being in a flow a certain way, summer flow, when you're hungry, you eat, versus now you can't eat until it's lunch. You
Yeah.
can't eat until the natural
Yeah.
time.
You know what I'm gonna do as a experiment for, the good of society
Yeah.
and our podcast. Maybe what I should do is just like, like go live on a tropical island
Okay.
for like an entire year,
Uh-huh.
and um then just kind of monitor if I get stressed out in the fall,
Yeah.
even though there's no external pressures at all.
That's really
And it
interesting,
just,
actually. Do you know what?
should I do that? I could do
Yeah,
it. A hammock,
sure. Yeah,
beach,
if you wanna do that. I
s-
do think,
for
you
research.
are fairly, I do worry about you getting sunburnt, so if you could take care of that, and then we'd have to get ahead of the podcast because we wouldn't wanna fall behind in our numbers. You know what they did though once? I saw this
But it
thing.
would be interesting to kinda know, like,
Yeah.
is this anxiety actually kinda, like, baked into your yearly cycle
Mhm.
of,
Mhm.
it's, to like, your like, could you actually, like, your
Circumvent it?
biorhythms or something
Yeah.
just naturally it just naturally occurs and you really have no control over
You know
it?
what? I was gonna say, I actually watched this show once on Channel 2 where they took away all the external stimulus and they recreated a house in a
Hmm,
building,
mhm.
so that and they ran tests on this person that they could eat when they want, they could go to sleep when they wanted, but
Right,
they
isn't
had
this the premise of the Big Brother show?
oh, I don't know. I don't watch
No, yeah, it's like
television.
a reality TV show where they put people
Oh,
in a fake house.
seriously? Oh, I didn't know that's what
Yeah.
that was. Oh, well, anyway, but they took away all the external stimulus, right? For nighttime and for
Mm,
sleeping, for waking up. And over the course of weeks, the biorhythm went completely upside down, 12-hour difference almost.
hmm,
So I think that there is
interesting.
something about that. But I think, in modern day, we don't have to worry about those kinds of extremes. However, there are a lot of these subtle things, so it isn't really just kids feeling the anxiety of friends and new homework and harder classes and new teachers. It's also new sports, new clubs.
Mhm.
And then the parents, as a as a parent, it's so normal for you to feel anxious for your kids when they get anxious.
Hmm.
You just wanna amp up whatever you need to do to soothe them, and we have gone overboard in many ways.
Yeah, I was gonna call you out for this phrase you said earlier, over caring.
Did I use
I
that
like
right?
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. In the world of parent over caring.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, and I think that, just as you watch adults manage their children today, I have a really good friend whose, child got into a great college, and 'tis the season, right? And they're leaving this week. And the night before, they said, "I'm not going. I'm not moving.
Hmm.
I'm not going. I'm not going to this school," and just flat out, just flat out panicked because
Hmm.
of all the change. And it threw the entire house into upside down land because
Yeah.
everybody felt responsible to try to sort it out. So it happens at all ages. I think that as a parent, we do have these really strong desires to make everything go okay for our children to the point where some of the lines have gotten a bit blurred.
Well, it's interesting to think about that because it's like you know how like others will like mimic or shadow like
Mhm.
your energy.
Yes, 100%.
So
Yep, that's so
if
true, JJ.
if you come in
Mhm,
to you know coming up to school and the first couple days of school as a parent
mhm,
with tons of anxiety, could be your own anxiety from your own childhood,
mhm.
that is going to get like pushed onto your kid and they're going to have
Yep,
all of that anxiety too,
yep.
even if they didn't generate it
Yeah,
themselves.
but and also conversely, if you know that you're like that and then you make this mental decision to override your emotions and to come at it the opposite way, it'll be fine, more placating and just like kind of almost
Mm,
like us, don't even worry about it. It's not even a
hmm.
right? That's the over response. And that
Yeah.
doesn't help either, actually, because
Yeah.
then the kid thinks, wait a minute, why are they acting like, boy, is this really bad? Like, do they know something I
Yeah.
don't?
Something's going to be horrible when I get there.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So, I mean, I think there's so many pieces and parts to this, and quite frankly, we try to keep our pods rather light on current events. We
Hmm.
don't usually talk lots about that, but I do think that with, this pandemic and with all of the
Because we're trying to keep it timeless.
Okay, yeah, that's what we were intentionally doing.
Oh no, because we're not paying attention to the
We
news.
don't wa oh, yeah, we don't watch or listen to anything happening in the social. But, like, if you think about this, all these terrible, scary things happening in schools, so everyone's
Hmm.
anxieties are even more amped up, and I think
Hmm.
that this starts in August, and this year, schools are starting earlier in a lot of districts, like, even
Mm.
in the Minneapolis-St. Paul area, schools are starting 1 and 2 weeks earlier than normal, and I think that must just be because of what they experienced last year and trying to build in a little more safety in terms of making sure they get the number of school days in. But
Yeah, I can tell you that ours is not starting early. And I was going to write a strongly worded email to the district about like maybe a week or two early be a good idea.
SLTF, as I always say about my husband, I'm really mad. I'm going to write a letter, strong letter to follow.
Come on. Year round school? That sounds pretty good.
But I,
Well,
I, I think that,
I agree that the environment in
mhm,
school, like when I hate to say when we were growing up, because like bad stuff happened when
sure.
we were growing
Not
up
like this,
too. You
though.
know what I mean?
Not like this.
But like, it's supposed to be a safe place.
Hmm.
And in a lot of ways it hasn't become a safe place. I actually like caught this article about this one group trying to like advocate that teachers should have guns to
Oh,
protect themselves. I'm like, that's insane.
yeah.
Like that's so far
Yeah.
the other
Yeah.
way
Yeah.
because that space is not supposed to be like it's supposed to be safe. And
Hmm.
I get that might be some people's version of
Yeah.
safety,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
it just seems really
Yeah,
sideways.
and I do think too, regardless of which side of politics you sit on, whether you are for guns or against guns, regardless of that, I think we're not really experiencing moderation in any effort right now. What we're
Mm,
experiencing are extremes. So, and I believe that those are, again, specifically targeted due to anxiety, right? It's like, since it seems like everything is out of control, I personally feel more responsible to have more control. Like, let's create more control. And then we have people's attitudes, behaviors, feelings amping up, 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 and it
Hmm.
just keeps going more and more up. And then you start getting really radical opinions, really radical arguing, really radical sides of either of the political pieces. So
Yeah.
it is a really scary piece, and I just think that we have to be easy on ourselves. We have to be easy on our children. It doesn't mean that we have to jump in and smother, even
Hmm.
though we probably want to. Like, I think it would be a very normal, honestly, a normal reaction to want to just hide your children under the closets, because it's so because you can get yourself very, very afraid. Um,
Yeah. Well, I mean, I know some parents that have basically taken their
yeah,
kids out of
me
school and
too.
done 100% online school
Mhm.
because home is safer.
Yeah, online school, and then I actually know a handful of people that have done homeschooling.
Mm.
Yeah, so people are doing radical things, and so I guess this isn't really about, the actions or the reactions to the thoughts and feelings that we're having. I guess this is just, us bringing this to people's attention. It's like you really have to be aware of how you're feeling about things, and you have to understand the root cause and source of those things. And
Hmm.
we haven't even talked about work yet. Like, um,
We'll get there. It's next on my
yeah.
bullet list.
Maybe since we're talking about gun
But
control, you shouldn't use the term bullet list anymore.
yeah,
Maybe we'll just say hashtags
yeah, okay.
or something.
Well, just on on the back on the parent
Yeah.
thing before we move on is, um, man, I will find myself getting anxiety or worried, and then again, kind of projecting that
Yeah.
on the kids, and I try to be really mindful and think about like, okay, that's a kind of like a me issue.
Yeah.
You don't need to create like project that energy
Yeah.
around, but you have to sit with it
You do have to.
because that again, I think those we talk about like some things that are like more monkey brain
Mhm.
instinct sort of
Mhm.
things with our emotions.
Mhm.
Well, like you said, I think this back to school timing, well, probably not fundamentally instinctual,
Mhm.
is awfully deep.
Yeah, it is.
It's really rooted in
Mhm.
the real deep. So,
Mhm.
so taking the time to think about maybe like your own childhood school experience and how you felt when
Mhm.
you were a child
Yeah.
and trying to kind of like recall some of that and just frame it and understand it
Yeah.
and then recognize when maybe that's bubbling up for you
Yeah.
as you're dealing with your own kids going to school.
And also recognize your current triggers,
Hmm.
because I can think of 3. I'll just throw them out. You walking into Target, or you're going into Walmart, or you're going into any of the big box stores, right? And the minute that you see back to school, that's a trigger. Parents will, "Oh
Yep.
my god, oh, now I'm gonna have to start doing I'm gonna have to buy all this, and have we gotten the school list, and wait a minute, when do you have to have all this stuff? Do you have to have stuff for your classroom?" So it immediately spurs
Yeah,
this
yeah.
jump into action, so that's a trigger. Here's another one.
Oh, you know what happened? One year we're trying to like do back to school shopping, but I wouldn't say we were like super late on it, but we
Mm.
were not like the early
Mhm.
birds at the Target trying to
Yep.
get like
Mhm.
the 24 color box
Yeah, yeah.
crayons. Well, it's like a week before school. We go to Target, like, hey, kids, are gonna go shopping. Nothing
Yep.
left. Like, absolutely nothing. We're like,
Yep.
oh my God,
Yep.
our kid's going to school with no things,
Exactly.
like, not even a pencil.
Yep. So
Like,
what did you tell
so
yourself?
now,
You said, "Oh my gosh, next year we're not gonna wait this long."
sure. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Now we're back to school shopping on Amazon in July.
Exactly. That's an example. Another example, is the state fair here in Minnesota. Every time they start announcing, or the state fair is coming, I
Oh, yeah.
love
That's the
the
thing.
state fair, but I always get this sinking feeling, "Oh, man, and now school." It's like, "Oh, rats, the state fair's
I
here. It's
know.
the end
The
of
state fair,
summer."
the end of summer.
Mhm. Yeah.
They have a branding problem with that. All right. What was your other triggers?
I can't
Back
I
to
can't
school
remember now.
signs. State Fair was one of your triggers. We're talking about your triggers or
No, I
general
think we're talking about
triggers?
just honestly, I think those are just general triggers. I really do. And then back to school shopping, it's like July, you start seeing all the schools clothing coming out and like all the
Ugh,
ads in the newspaper back when everybody would get the Sunday newspaper. All of those ads, and there would be like this pressure as a parent to make sure that your kids had clothes. But every single child has this weird DNA where they actually don't grow until the first week of school. So people
yeah, I
buy
know.
all these brand new clothes for school, and then the kids go to their first day of school, and it's usually like 98 degrees in the classroom. But of course, they're wearing like corduroys and cute hoodies because that's what's cool for the first day, right?
Yeah,
But just this pressure to make sure that your kids have everything they need, not just in supplies, but in clothing, and that they're excited that they have a new backpack. They're just like buy, buy, buy. And that triggers a lot of parents because they may not have the luxury of being able to buy all this stuff so that they do stress out. Like, what if my kid doesn't look the
yeah.
same or have the same things or right?
Well, when I was going into 7th grade, uh, the back to school clothes shopping, one of the 7th grade requirements when I was a kid you had to have like Nike Air Jordans.
You had to.
Well, like that was the
Oh,
thing.
okay,
Like the
you didn't
coolest
have
thing was
to.
to have
Okay.
like Air
Yeah, yeah.
in,
Oh, yeah.
like
Mhm.
Nike
Yeah,
Airs,
yeah.
right? And I remember like my mom, she loves when I tell stories about her
Hi,
childhood.
Mrs.
Um,
Parker.
she like they were like super expensive, right?
Yeah. Yes.
And she's not gonna buy me, whatever that was, like $150 shoes in the
Exactly.
80s.
Exactly.
And then we went to store to store to store to like find something
Yeah.
that would like
Equivalent.
work, right?
For a
Yeah,
fraction of
and
the price.
I vividly remember just like I mean, I now that I think about it, I mean, I remember like kind of being tired, going from store to
Oh, I know.
stores,
Hating it.
saying no all the time,
Yes, being a
whatever.
brat. I'm sure you
Try
were awful.
I was never a brat. What are you talking about? Um, but I mean, my recollection of it, she might have a different recollection of it, but she was like very patient,
Yes.
trying to get
Yeah.
me to get to a spot where I said yes to a pair of
Oh
shoes,
my
and just
gosh.
it was store after store. I'm like, nope,
No.
not nothing here for me, right? So yeah, that fashion
Yeah.
part, that like wanting the right clothes, and especially that age,
Yeah.
right?
Oh,
That
it's
middle school, high
terrible.
school
Yeah, it's
age is
very hard.
just
Mhm.
so important. It's just such a big part of that period of your life, is like you want to be cool in
Yeah.
that way.
Yeah.
And it's hard for parents because that stuff is expensive.
Yeah.
Like,
Yep.
so my teenage boys are like, "Hey, I want this shirt." I'm like, "It's $110 used shirt. Like, it's not even new." Like, no.
No. But, that and that's clothing, but if you're talking about even younger children, then the parents have oftentimes figured out a different way for childcare during the summer, and now, wham, they're
Mm.
back into having to have different kind of childcare in this
Oh
fall,
yeah.
and then
Yep.
so that's expensive. Then there's also school dues, PTO, there's sporting dues,
Yep.
and so there's also a huge financial ripple for
Yep.
families as they reach the end of summer again. So again, there's just a number of things that hit us, and it all goes right into somewhere into our feelings, right? And
Yeah.
we usually don't label that and allow ourselves, we don't allow ourselves the feeling of it. What we do is we jump into what are we going to do about it? And it
Yeah.
still doesn't
Yep.
do anything for those feelings. And then we turn them towards work.
Yeah. The like what you said is, we kind of glossed over it, but when you're talking about triggers, I mean, a huge trigger has got to be your feeling of having or not
Yeah.
as a child
Hmm.
coming back out
Yeah.
as you navigate,
Yeah.
buying school
Yeah.
supplies and clothes and things.
Right. Right.
Okay,
Right.
enough with children. I'm done with that topic.
We're never done, JJ. I don't know if you knew that, but the minute you had
Oh.
children, your life is never, ever, ever going to be done. Period. That's all the end. But
um,
I do want to talk about the work piece for a moment,
yeah,
though.
let's switch to work
Yeah.
because like
Yeah.
that actually kind of sounds fun to me because again,
Oh,
a
fun.
lot of times like I don't associate. I didn't associate
Mm.
kind of back to school with how it affects
Mhm.
my work.
Yeah.
Even though now that I think about it, it clearly does.
Mhm.
Like I actually kind of get personally, I get like very excited for the
Yeah, I
fall
know you love
time of
fall and
work.
winter. Yeah.
Well, I love those seasons,
Mhm.
but at work,
Mm.
for me, like fall is strategic planning
Yeah.
and budgeting season.
Oh my god. Yes,
And
I
I
know.
know everyone's like, "Oh god, yeah, I love
Oh, yeah,
strategic
man.
planning
Get
and
out the
budgeting. Let's
spreadsheets.
get the details in
Blech,
there.
spreadsheets.
Yeah, get one of those spreadsheets that like, the cells are all calculating from each other and you
God,
make
you're
one little
so
mistake, the whole
weird.
thing blows up. So awesome.
It's so weird. You're right, though. Like,
But
yeah.
to me, it's like this to me is like it's like the part where we review kind of what we've done,
Mhm.
we start planning for next
Mhm.
year.
Mhm.
It's kind of like in my role, at least at the company, it's kind of like my time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like this is the part where I
Yeah.
bring like the most value to the business
Yeah.
is through that cycle.
But
So for me, it's very exciting.
yeah. But you also
But
have
it's a
to
season change.
admit that it's a huge shift for you energetically from summer.
Oh yeah.
Because summertime is like, we both you and I are trying to do, and have been doing time off, trying to take more time off, be mindful of the things that we need, doing more things out of the office, right? And so
Just
now
trying to keep that a secret.
yeah,
Come on, what
well,
are you doing?
yeah, no, no. It's out there. We all do it. But
JJ,
I have to
what you're saying is JJ and Melissa screw around most of the summer.
I've been really busy, but yes,
You've been so
I
busy.
have screwed around a little bit, not as much as I'd like to. And that is making me feel a little sad because my time is closing. Now it's August. And I think a lot of people this year have been taking more vacations during the summer months.
Yep.
I think that,
We've had a ton of people out this summer. Like
yes,
it's great.
way,
It's really
yep.
good, but way high. I mean,
Hmm.
obviously with COVID
Yeah,
the past few years,
right.
it was way lower
Hmm.
just because people just frankly didn't know what to
Yep.
do.
Yep.
But this summer it's just like
Yeah.
we got this like thing that puts who's kind of in and out.
Hmm.
And like last week, it was just like half the company's
Yeah,
out. It was awesome.
exactly. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, you think it's awesome, but a lot of people are freaking out. They're trying to get it all in, right? So
Yep.
energetically, there's this sort of feeling like there's a race, like, oh my gosh,
Hmm.
as soon as it hits the end of August, everything is over and everybody gets really let down. And there's a huge shift in energy in the fall. For me, my schedule also ramps up because I
Mm,
facilitate strategic planning for companies. So
yep.
my schedule gets super, super, super busy. And I start feeling this like, okay, how am I going to I need to make sure I have enough energy. I need to make sure that I have enough. Am I spacing everything out appropriately? Like, so there's some anxiety that kicks in as we're coming to a close with this time of the year that is
Yeah.
I absolutely love. And I think a
Yep.
lot of people have been feeling that way and feeling sad and really disconnected because they've been so excited to take the time off that they have. And yet now they have to look at coming back.
Yep.
So I think
So I tried to do something about that.
you're trying to do something about it.
I did something about
What
that.
did you do?
Well, so we have half day Fridays all
Oh,
summer,
yeah. Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
Because summer Mesa doesn't last that long, and I just want to give people
Mhm.
some time, like a little bit of extra
Mhm.
freedom
Yeah.
in the summer. Um, but we just kept half day Fridays rolling
Yeah.
through the
Yeah.
winter
I remember.
because, like, frankly, it doesn't. The extra 4 hours on the week doesn't.
It
It
doesn't.
it makes everything more efficient.
Yeah.
We could do a pod on my opinion of 4-day work weeks. Um, but it was like kind of my attempt to help that part of the anxiety. Like, okay, we're just gonna keep this
Mhm.
little summer perk
Yeah.
going,
Right. Right.
so it's
Right.
at least something there.
Yeah.
The thing that I was, not we're not gonna flip back to the kid stuff, but at work with the stresses that happen with your family during this transition
Mhm.
time, there's like emotional crosstalk,
Mhm.
right? It's like you're feeling anxious at home, you kind of bring that anxiety into
Totally.
work, and then you kind of like it
Mhm.
kind of like acts out
Yep.
at work
Yes.
over colleagues and customers, and
Yeah.
not on purpose.
No, uh-uh.
It's because it's in there and it just kind
Yeah.
of
Yeah,
comes
yeah,
out, and
that's
everyone's
exactly right.
sometimes a little shorter,
Mhm.
little a little more frantic,
Yeah.
and
Yep.
and
Or
just giving grace.
take a little longer to respond,
Mhm.
take a little longer to complete projects that normally
Yeah.
don't take as long. I mean, I'm
And
seeing
there's
that
gonna be all
across the
that stuff
board.
too. It's just like, oh, so I'm super guilty of this around this time too. It's just like I'd be like super deep into working on something or even in a meeting or something. I'll be like, oh crap, it's 3:30. I can go pick up my kid. I totally forgot. I was
Yeah.
like so out of the rhythm
Yeah.
of kid pickup that I forgot. And now it's like all a rush, right?
JJ. Yeah.
They can deal with that emotional baggage later
Okay.
when they're adults.
Okay, here we go. Oh, man, you are squirrely today. Well, I think that this is, I think this is a really
Well,
good
yeah,
conversation. I think
super good. This went way long,
yeah,
but obviously it's a huge topic, and
yeah.
everyone can have, like we always say, take your own inventory around this season
Well,
of light of the year.
yeah, and I would actually say, um, while you're noticing how you're feeling, can you just do me a big favor and don't make yourself wrong for it? Don't judge yourself. Don't get mad at yourself that you're not getting things done the way you used to, or you want to, or you told yourself you were going to. Just be easy. Be easy on yourself because the challenges that we are facing, even in something as simple as a seasonal change, are really adding to this, the energy in the system, the
Yeah,
whole system, and it's really hard for people. And if it's hard for you, that's okay. It won't stay like this. That's the one thing we can count on is that we will continue to move through this. And if you sort of have looked into your past life experiences last fall, the fall before, when you were young, pretty sure you can conjure up a lot of feelings and a lot of senses in your body that feel exactly the same as this. And you can also recall that they didn't last either. So I hope people can give themselves a little bit of a break.
did you enjoy this episode? Please go to your favorite podcast platform to subscribe, rate, and leave a review so others can discover it as well.
Growing self awareness is a lifelong journey, and there's always further to go. And it's better when we're all in it together. Please think of someone you know who could benefit from hearing today's conversation and share this episode with them. We can't thank you enough for listening. Until next time, happy exploring, seekers.